And I had to be careful, like, not to drop the phone,
Oh yeah.
like in the bus.
Oh, you mean
Please ring the bell.
Wow.
in this one, does it go?
No, this is. Oh, do you feel cold?
No, okay.
I'm okay here.
I just want you to sit
There
on.
is open spaces around the city, particularly in the forest of gold trees. One of York's most famous sons is Joseph Rowntree.
I didn't know that people were hung on the Knavesmire.
Eh?
They hung people on the Knavesmire.
And for his work in the famous
Is it?
Yeah,
factory company of
that's
the
what they
same
were just
name.
talking
In
about.
1827, his father set up a grocer's shop in Pyre.
Here we go.
Nice.
We move into Gilligate, originally named St Giles's Gate, after the church of St Giles, which stood at the far end. Look above the shop windows on the right, and sitting behind the old gas lamp, you'll see the statue of a white cat. Originally, the cats were probably put there in Victorian times as good luck charms and to scare rats away. In later years, statues of cats started to appear on buildings all over the city. They were trademark of a local York architect called Tom Adams. These cats have become quite a feature around the city. Keep looking to your right. You will see some of the buildings have windows which have been bricked up. This comes from the window tax. In 1696, a law was introduced in which people had to pay a tax on how many windows their property had. So to avoid paying the tax, some people simply bricked up their windows. This may well be where the saying daylight robbery comes from. You had paid the tax or bricked up the windows.
Why would that's so silly? Why would you pay
Hence,
tax on windows?
Yeah.
Daylight.
That's crazy.
What they said they did to make sure they don't pay tax.
They bricked up the windows
They
because,
bricked?
no, they bricked. They filled them in. So they want to pay the tax.
Because it depends how many windows.
Because yeah, they get charged more for having more windows.
How weird.
On the left, where the Salvation Army building now stands, would have stood
That
St
one is
John's
big
Church, which is where the street Gilligate takes its name. In comparison to other churches in York, we know little about it. This may be due in part to the plague pits which were around this area, making archaeology hazardous. The original church was demolished in the 16th century. We see the city walls on our right. The corner tower is known as Robin Hood's Tower, although Robin Hood had nothing to do with York, so the name is a bit of a mystery. In front of the wall, you can see what remains of a great ditch or moat. This ditch would have been full of rotting waste and dead animals. Not very pleasant.
Ew.
And is thought to be one of the best preserved
What is
medieval
that?
ditches in
This
Behind
moat.
the wall to the right, you get a view of York Minster. Its full title is the Cathedral and Metropolitical Church of St Peter in York. It is both a cathedral and a minster. A cathedral is where a bishop has his seat, which is called a cathedra. A minster comes from Leinster, the Anglo-Saxon name for a missionary church. This is the fifth church to stand here. The first was thought to be a small wooden chapel built in 627 AD, somewhere on the land where the present minster stands today. Above the buildings on the right, you will get a brief glimpse of Monk Bar, the tallest of the gateways. It stands 63 feet, which is 19.2 metres in height, and you will get a better view as we turn. On the top stand life-size stone figures known as the Wild Men of York. Legend says they will come alive and throw their boulders down onto anybody daring enough to attack the city. Monk Bar houses the only working portcullis on any of the city's gateways. Portcullis is a big iron gate.
Yeah, I know that doll place has been.
Gate was last opened in 1953 for the Queen's coronation.
It's been there for literal,
Made up ever
like,
since.
it's like literally as long as I can remember. That place has been there, and I've always hated it because I find it really creepy.
Yeah.
I don't like the dolls.
I believe that these people own that thing because they never move and the doll's always there.
Now in Monkgate, the street takes its name from its Viking beginnings. The word gate comes from the Viking gatra, meaning street, and from the monks who walked to and from York Minster down the street. Nothing really remains outside the city walls of older York. siege of York in the Civil War in 1644. On the left, behind the railings, is a beautiful garden. The garden is actually a mock Elizabethan knot garden, so isn't as old as it looks, and has taken around 30 years to get to its present standard. On the right is a pub which toasts York's great racing heritage. It is named after a racehorse called the Brigadier Gerard, which won 17 out of his 18 starts, finally being beaten by a horse called Roberto in 1962.
Roberto.
We move into Foss Bank and run alongside York's secondary road, Foss on our left. It probably gets its name from the Latin word fossa, which means ditch or stream. The foss stretches for 28 miles in length, and despite once being very polluted in this area, the river is now teeming with wildlife. Even otters, which only live in clean water, have been spotted.
Oh, what? There have been otters in there? I didn't know there were any otters in there.
Workmen unearthed hundreds of skeletons here. Work was stopped, and an investigation found this site to be the largest Jewish burial site outside of London, dating back to 1177. The chief rabbi was called in, the land was consecrated and declared sacred, and the bodies were left in peace. This area is known as Dewberry, which means Jewish borough or town.
Wow, I didn't know that. There's almost so much stuff you didn't know. Yeah. There's literally a graveyard here.
If you look to your right, you'll see that the city walls come to an end. That's because a wall was not needed at this side of the city due to the king's fish pool, which formed a man-made defence against attack. The walls never completely circled the city, as there was no need for a wall where they met water.
The goose.
Yeah, the goose.
Turn on to Piso Green, and on our right is St Cuthbert's Church. St Cuthbert's is one of York's buildings mentioned in the Domesday Book of 1086.
Oh my God.
A book in which William the Conqueror listed all of the property and land he took over when he invaded, so he could tax the locals. Notice the church has two doors, a large door with a porch to the left-hand end, and a smaller door to the right-hand end. The small door is known as the Devil's Door. Legend has it that the door should be left open during baptisms to allow the devil to escape from the child and the church. There is also a legend that a tunnel leads from the church to the building ahead of us in the trees on the left, which just happens to be a pub. Maybe it was for those in the pub to go and confess their sins, or was it for the priest to go for a sly beer? If you look to the left, there is a 15th century timber frame house, now the Black Swan pub. Can you spot the cat climbing up the wall above the door? The Black Swan claims to be one of the most haunted pubs in York, but to be fair, most pubs in York claim to be either the most haunted or the oldest. It does have some rather intriguing ghosts in there.
They're all haunted.
One of the ghosts is said to be a grumpy old man who sits at the bar, tapping his watch as if waiting for a meeting that is never going to happen. Nobody ever buys him a drink. This brings us into Snowboat. This is our nearest stop for York's most famous street, Shambles, the medieval cobble street of the butchers, the market, the city centre shops, the chocolate story and the merchant adventurous hall. Please alight here for any of these places. Looking ahead, we can see the small church hall of St Crux. Just in front of St Crux on the right is York's shortest street, the longest name, Whitmer Gate. We think it gets its name from Old Saxon, Whitner Whatner, meaning it's neither one thing nor the other. The street only has three properties, numbers 1, 1A and 1.5. It never gets to 2. Just past the church hall of St Crux on the right is the Shambles. The Shambles probably gets its name from an old Danish word, fleshamels. Street of the butchers. The flesh was the meat and the shamble was a large window ledge outside the shop where meat would be displayed. The animals were slaughtered in the backyard, the blood and guts ran down a channel in the centre of the street and the offal was left to rot. The plagues which hit York between the 14th and 17th century probably started in streets like the Shambles. Today it is much cleaner, but you can still see the meat hooks hanging above some of the original shambles. Right, and you may get a brief view along the Shambles. At the far end you can see how the house is nearly touching the top. This is known as Cheide. If you heard the shout Gardyloo, you would very quickly get under the overhang of the building. Gardyloo means watch out for the water, and meant that the contents of somebody's chamber pot were about to be deposited on your head.
Look.
Ahead of us is All Saints Pavement, which has a lantern tower instead of a spire. The lantern tower would have had a fire lit in days gone by to guide travellers back towards the city after dark. Today the tower can be seen lit up at night in memory of those who fought in the First and Second World Wars. The Merchant Adventurers Hall can be found by alighting here. Level access can be found by turning left just ahead into Boss Gate. You will then find the entrance about 1 minute's walk on the left. Built between 1357 and 1361, the Merchant Adventurers Hall is probably the finest medieval guild hall in Europe and stands on the original medieval street level. The timbers used in its construction were taken from trees that grew back in Viking times. A real jewel, it is well worth a visit. We go past the Red Lion on our right, which claims to be the pub that occupies the oldest surviving building. It has an ancient bread oven thought to date back to the 1300s. It is said to be haunted by the ghost of Dick Turpin, the highway robber, who was said to have hidden there and escaped capture by jumping out of a top floor window onto his horse, a tale which has added to his folklore status. We move into Wormgate. This street was originally called Walbergate, possibly named after a female Viking warrior named Walber. It is one of York's oldest streets, following the line of the ancient Roman road to the east. Can you spot more cats on the buildings to the right?
There.
Where? Oh, yeah. Oh,
On the
there's
right,
more.
St Dennis stands on the site of an earlier church. It's the only stained glass in York, and some parts of the church date back to Norman times. The church has had some bad luck over the years. Parts of it have been damaged or destroyed by cannon fire during the Civil War, by lightning strikes, gales, and by subsidence when drainage ditches were dug nearby. All these events have left the church much altered. It's shorter than it used to be without its spire, with its entrance now in the place where a window once was. St Denis is named after the patron saint of France, Saint Denis. One of the windows shows a picture of Saint Denis, who was persecuted by the Romans and had his head chopped off. Legend says he bent down, picked his head up, and carried on walking to his grave. Saint Denis is not only the patron saint of France, but he is also known as the patron saint of headaches.
No. Why is there a saint of headaches? Can you get rid of them?
We are now in Piccadilly, Bond Street by York standards, which stands on the route of an earlier medieval street of unnamed origin. Renamed after its London counterpart, Piccadilly was built to be a bustling shopping street, but has never scaled to the height of its London namesake. In recent years, a lot of this area fell into disrepair, but these days it is getting an upgrade. The River Foss, the smaller of York's two rivers, runs behind the buildings on our left. It is because we have two rivers in York, the Foss and the Ouse, that the city exists where it does today. The two rivers meet some distance away from us to form a narrow section of land which was easily defendable. This is one of the main reasons the Romans set up camp here in AD 71. This area was ideal to control the warring tribes and trade with them. The Romans called this place Iberacum, possibly meaning place of the yew tree. And that was the start of this
Oh,
great
I can
city.
smell loads of delicious food.
What will you think?
I don't know.
So we're going to taco, Mom,
Yes! Yeah, we should go to the Mexicano.
because I want to try.
Yeah.
Gets its name not from the metal copper as you might think, but from cupra, the Norse for cup maker. When the new Coppergate shopping precinct was built in the late 1970s and early 1980s, over 40,000 finds from a Viking settlement were unearthed, beautifully preserved by the sills and mud around here. What was found here completely changed what we knew of Viking life. Today you can see what was found in the York Viking Centre, where you can travel back in time over 1,000 years in York's history to experience the sights, the sounds and even the smells of Viking York. You can visit the Viking Centre from our next stop. Straight ahead is King Street, which takes you down to the River Ouse. The bottom of King Street is one of the most famous pubs in York, the King's Arms. The pub is famous because it regularly can be seen flooded when the River Ouse breaks its banks. If you go inside the King's Arms, you can see the height of the flood's mark on the wall. We move into Clifford Street, built in about 1881 to provide an alternative route from Nestgate to Skelgate Bridge. The new route was needed to accommodate the new horse-drawn tram service. On the right, the York Dungeon is housed in the Grand Old Victorian Institute of Learning. It tells the grisly side of York's history, recalling tales of torture and misery. To Tower Street, the site of the castle. This is your stop for the Castle Museum, Clifford's Tower, York City Cruises, the York Environment Centre, York Dungeon, Fairfax House and St George's Field Coach and Car Park. Clifford's Tower is on our left. It was part of the castle that was built in 1245, but it is not the first castle to stand here. Originally there were two castles, one either side of the river. They were built by William the Conqueror's men in 1068 and made of wood. However, a year later the locals burnt down the castle in a rebellion. William was furious and sent his troops to quell the rebellion. He did this in a brutal fashion, an event which is now referred to as the Harrying of the North, where he burnt everything between York and the Newcastle area. Buildings, animals and crops were all destroyed. But he didn't stop there. It is believed he got his troops to salt the soil so nothing could grow. Many thousands died due to his actions. The rebellion was over. The second wooden castle was to be the place of one of the darkest episodes in York's history. It has become known as the Massacre of the Jews. In 1190, anti-Jewish feeling was running high in Western Europe due to the Crusades. The Jews had also become the main moneylenders at this point, something that went against the Christian beliefs at the time. In York, an uprising against the Jews led to a group of about 150 going to the castle seeking safety. The mob outside grew in number, demanding blood or baptism. Eventually, realising there was no chance of escape, the Jews did the unimaginable and took their own lives. This is a terrible point in York's history. On the left, the building dates back to the 1770s. This was the assize courts where such characters as Dick Turpin, the highwayman, were held. Today, it is the Crown Courts. Just past the court building on the left, you get a nice view of the last remaining piece of the castle wall. This includes the site where a drawbridge was stood on top of a wall leading over the River Boss.
They're quite lovely
To live here. That's why the houses are expensive. It's got lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Ahead we can see a square tower, marking the end of this section of city wall.
We found
this
nugget
is
down there.
Yeah.
Tower, where the wall met the River Foss.
How much we
Boston means
struggled
rear
to get
entrance.
him
This is where goods
on
would be
all the
unloaded
way
by
to
ships on the
make sure
River
he
Foss, which
survived.
would have reached
Yeah.
right up to the base of the
Survived
tower.
handsome and really caring. He used to come to see me when I used to call him in the river.
Yeah.
Looking at over the hedge to our left is the graveyard of St George's Church, which is just one upstanding headstone in it. Those on the bottom deck may see this headstone through the gates on the left of the turn. This is the grave of Dick Turpin, the notorious Georgian highwayman, an infamous criminal who robbed stagecoaches in the 18th century. Or so we think, because we can't be sure that's actually him down there. The legend of Dick Turpin tells of a chivalrous criminal on a horse named Black Bess, who would jump out from behind trees in front of stagecoaches shouting, "Stand and deliver your money or your life." It was at this point you would give him all your money and everybody would go home happy. In truth, he was believed to be a thief, poacher and a murderer. He never had a horse named Black Bess either. That was made up about 100 years after his death. Turpin was actually from Essex, but came to York to avoid capture, using the assumed name of John Palmer. He laid low in a place called Brough, just to the east of York, but was found out and later arrested. He was brought to York for trial, where he was found guilty of the more serious crime of being a horse thief. He was taken out to the Tyburn on the Knavesmire, where he was hanged in 1739.
I wonder why he got so much notoriety then.
What he did, I think.
He's literally just a thief. He's just a thief, like.
We are
And
now back
possibly
in
a murderer.
In the 1840s, this area became the second place for Irish immigrants escaping the potato famine, arriving here to find work. Many found work on the roads, the railways, the rivers and canals, which is how they got their nickname, navvies, stemming from navigation systems. The area was one of the poorest poverty-ridden places in the city. 2 or 3 families with around 15 to 20 people would be cramped into just a couple of rooms, with little in the way of sanitation or running water. The good news was at that time there was around 20 pubs in Walgate alone, so it would have been quite a lively place. Today you can still see the influence of the Irish in this area in some of the street names such as Navigation Road, Oak Street, Shannon House and Thistle Court. Ahead of us is Walgate Park, the most complete gateway on the city wall in the United Kingdom. This is because it still retains its barbican, a tunnel-like structure on the outside of the gateway. We will see the barbican when we turn right. You won't see another original barbican attached to a city wall unless you go to Krakow in Poland. All the others are now gone. The Barbican is an extra defensive structure on the outside of the gate. It is a double gateway formed by two walls, which stretch out into the road ahead for about 18 metres or 60 feet.
Yeah, it smells tasty everywhere.
To trap any attackers in the tunnel between the inner oak doors and the outer doors, which were made of iron. The defending soldiers on the walls above could then attack those trapped below, firing arrows, throwing down rocks and boiling liquids.
Do you think it's weird, like, to see, like, there's all these little flats? Can you imagine having a flat and then just next door is this wall?
Yeah.
It's so weird, isn't it?
Brief view inside the Barbican. Imagine being trapped in there, with the soldiers above firing arrows down, as well as pouring boiling urine on those. This section of the walls was the last to be built. There wasn't need for a high wall around this area due to the protection afforded by the King's Fish Pool. The defensive mound at the bottom of the walls were actually cut back to allow cattle pens to be situated for the cattle market that moved to this area in 1828. Cattle and sheep were brought here from all over the country to be traded and were kept in pens up against the walls awaiting sale. The cattle market buildings would have stood where the Barbican Leisure Centre stands today.
There's little purple flowers all over.
It is York's main music and entertainment venue. It is where the UK Snooker Championship has been held many times. On our right is Fishergate Bar. This is the smallest of the 5 medieval gateways. In 1489, the gateway was attacked and damaged in the Yorkshire Peasants' revolt against Henry VII. Rebels fell against the bar and were in the Earl of Northumberland. The gateway was built up soon after and wasn't built until 1834 to give better access to the cattle market. On the right is the Seahorse Hotel, originally called the Shire Horses. A purpose-built pub in the 19th century. Notice the large arch just big enough to cross the carriage route to the stable. This was where weary travellers came to take their rest. Ahead of us is the Travelodge. Notice it is made out of the same stone, magnesia limestone, as the city walls in the Minster. The idea is modern buildings around the city are built to fit in with old York.
Oh, that's cool. I never noticed that.
To the left,
What they say?
The Travelodge is built with the same stone as the walls to try and fit in, 'cause even though it's a new building, they want it to fit in with everything else.
The glass structure above the
Expensive.
Yeah.
We move on to Skeldergate Bridge, across the river Ruth. Skeldergate means the street of the shield maker. The original design of the bridge was altered to enable the bridge to open, allowing tall ships to reach the busy quaysides further upstream. The bridge was last opened in 1975 and the winding mechanism has since been removed. Looking to our right, we see the city walls of Bale Hill, the grass mountain with trees growing on it. Bale Hill was the site of William the Conqueror's second castle, dating to around 1068. York's two Norman castles were designed to control access to the city by river. The chain would be stretched across the river to prevent attack from ships coming up the river. They would also have given early warning of approaching enemies from miles around. Nothing remains of the castle at Bale Hill, however, because it was only ever made of wood, and nobody wanted to change its upkeep. Eventually, it was found to be in such a sad state of disrepair, it was pulled down. Notice the buildings around are much more modern outside the walls, but don't be fooled. There used to be older buildings outside the city walls, but in 1644, York was under siege for 3 months during the Civil War. Around 30,000 parliamentarian troops surrounded the city. It is said it was the royalists defending the city who pulled down the buildings outside the walls to get a better view of those attacking them. We rejoin the city walls on the right, just past the trees, is another gateway called Victoria Bar. This is a modern gateway only opened in 1838. It has been said that Queen Victoria was asked to come and officially open the gateway, but she declined. You can probably see why. It never had towers or a barbican, it's just 3 holes in the wall. We get a nice view of the city walls to the right. The walls of York are built in 3 sections, which total about 2 3/4 miles or 3.4 kilometres in length. They are the most complete set of city walls in England. Visitors to York tend to think the walls are Roman. In fact, our present walls are medieval. Begun in the 1220s, they took about 100 years to complete. They stand upon earthwork embankments created by the Vikings. This makes them unique. York's modern railway station, opened in 1877. At the time it referred to one of the great iron cathedrals and a monument to extravagance. The first permanent station was built down to our right inside the wall. The large arches were knocked through the wall to allow the train into the station in 18. It wasn't very practical. Once you got the train in there, it then had to be turned or reversed to get back out. York was becoming a very busy station, which would soon see over 300 trains a day. So at 5:30 a.m. on June the 25th, 1877, the first train left what was then the largest railway station in Britain. This stop is the railway station, Albert Royal York Hotel. Thank you for travelling with us today, and don't forget to keep your tickets safe if you are joining us again later. To our left is the Memorial Gardens. These are gardens dedicated to those who lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. This is our nearest stop to the National Railway Museum. If you take a trip round the National Railway Museum, you'll find something in there for everyone, not just the rail enthusiasts. Do allow plenty of time for your visit there, as the museum is huge. And remember, it is every Yorkshireman's favourite price. Free. The National Railway Museum is about a 5-minute stroll from here. Please ask your driver for directions. The National Railway Museum shows off the engineering brilliance and innovations the railway has brought over the years and has a display second to none of the past and present of the railways. Take a trip round the journey time is up to 5 hours by using the train.
Imagine having to take a whole day just to get to
York to
London.
London can now be done in less than 2 hours. The stagecoaches were carrying around 23,000 passengers a year between York and London, but were soon put out of business by the much faster railway. By the 1850s, the trains were carrying 341,000 passengers each year. All around this area,
What is this? Is this a
geese
hotel?
grazing. York has two types of geese: greylags, which are the most common native goose in Britain, the ancestors of most domestic geese, and Canadian geese, which are the ones with the longer necks. One of the more unusual sights around York is geese copying behaviour using pedestrian crossings to get across the road. You will see lines of geese patiently waiting to cross the road. However, not all have got any road sense. Do be careful approaching them if they are out with their young, as they can get quite aggressive. On the left is a tower with a pointy roof. This is Barker Tower, the old ferryman's cottage. The name Barker comes from the tree bark that was used in tanning and leather. Urine was put in barrels to clean the animal skins before tanning. It was the children's job to stand on the skins in the barrels. On the right, facing onto the river, is the stone building called the Guildhall. First built nearly 500 years ago, this building is almost a total modern reconstruction. This is because the first Guildhall was bombed and nearly destroyed during the Pyre air raids in the Second World War. Over the bridge on the right is the former Victorian Gentlemen's Club, where gentlemen of the day could go and have a glass of port, an exquisite meal, smoke a cigar, and get away from the ladies to talk politics. Today, however, it is the Pizza Express, where you go for margarita pizza, a glass of coke. You can't smoke inside anymore, but you can still talk politics. Oh, and ladies, you are now allowed in. Our next stop is the Museum Gardens, the Yorkshire Museum, Betty's Tea Room, and York City Creatures. In the gardens to our left, you will find the ruins of St Mary's Abbey. Once the largest and richest Benedictine abbey in the north of England, it was pulled down by Henry VIII's men in the dissolution of the monastery in the 1500s. Also, you will see some of the Roman portrait walls and Monk's Angular Tower. The garden also houses the Yorkshire Museum. Ahead of us is York Minster, the jewel in our crown, the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe. This present building took 252 years to complete. It was started in 1220 and not finished off until 1472. It is amazing to think this present building was finished 20 years before America was discovered. The Minster has 128 stained glass windows containing over 3 billion pieces of glass. On the right at the junction is the Visit York Information Centre. Times of the assortment of other services in the Minster can be found there, as well as information on other places to visit around the city. The Theatre Royal is over to our right hand side, on the site of the medieval St Benet's Hospital, which is said to be haunted by the ghost of the little girl who is referred to as the Grey Lady. It is said she fell in love with a nobleman, and as this was forbidden, she was rigged up behind a wall in a room for all eternity for her sake. It is hoped by the actors that she turns up on the last dress rehearsal before opening night. Otherwise, it's not bad luck for the run of the show. This brings us into Exhibition Square. This is the nearest stop for York Minster, the Art Gallery, King's Manor, London Bar, and the nicely sectioned little city wall, as well as the Visit York Information Centre. Thank you to anyone leaving us at this point on this Golden Zone York tour. We hope that you've enjoyed your trip. We look forward to having you join us again. If time and traffic permits, we may pause here for a few minutes, so our next tour will be leaving shortly. The tour will take approximately 1 hour, during which we'll be pointing out places of interest and telling you something of the history of our beautiful city. Feel free to stay with us, hop off and explore. Of course, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask your driver, who will be pleased to help. The history of York is the history of England, so said King George VI, and he was so right. It is not the oldest town in the country, that is said to be Colchester, but it certainly isn't the largest city. But we can show you over 6,000 years of England's history, from the Romans right to the present day. So relax, and let us take you on a journey through this city's past. Welcome to York. On the left is the Art Gallery.
I could see you look to try and find the bus driver to say thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
I can hear the talk, but not the man.